We're kicking off today with WWE, and with the holidays upon us, WWE taped this Friday's episode of SmackDown last week, which will feature an appearance by AJ Styles. The Phenomenal One was on last week's show and took out Roman Reigns before attacking LA Knight to close out the show, with some seeing this as a sign of a heel turn. During the taping for this Friday's SmackDown, Styles appeared dressed in all black in what could be another sign that he is embracing a darker character. Styles has worked as both a heel and a face in WWE, and it looks like he'll be a much darker character moving forward. And what did you think of this change? Let us know down in the comments. During last week's SmackDown, Randy Orton made his presence felt on the show and made it clear that he wants a shot at undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns. Orton made his entrance on the blue brand before WWE cut to commercial break, leaving Orton having to kill some time before they returned to action. In a video recorded by a fan, Orton can be seen awkwardly passing the time outside the ring and had to make a very long entrance out of the situation. Orton was seen stretching and pacing back and forth while Roman Reigns and the Bloodline were in the ring, and fans were probably confused as to why they weren't interacting. This wasn't the first time he's had to deal with commercial breaks in his WWE career and likely won't be the last, but this situation was an awkward one for the former world champion. It's been just over a year since Mandy Rose was released from WWE in controversial circumstances, as she was cut by the company after they learned of the explicit content on her website. Rose has always claimed that she was never given the chance to take the content down before being released, but this situation may not be the last we see of her in WWE. According to a report from Fight Fans, Rose's departure from the WWE was more business-related and less personal, as Triple H and Shawn Michaels still think very highly of her. Despite the lack of tension between the two parties, the report also confirmed that there are no immediate plans to bring Rose back to WWE, but WWE are open to the idea if it makes sense. Mandy Rose hasn't competed since leaving WWE and has said she's not sure what the future holds, but don't be surprised if the former NXT Women's Champion is a WWE superstar again one day. It was a few months back that Bryan Danielson said that this year will be his last as a full-time wrestler, as he promised to cut back on ring time when his daughter Birdie turned 7. On the latest AEW Collision, Danielson earned 3 points in the AEW Continental Classic against Brody King and had plenty to say after the show went off the air. He stated, "The answer is also a question, what are you going to do with this one wild and precious life? For me, I'm gonna fight. That's what brings me joy. That's what makes me feel alive, and I've got it for less than a year now. I can feel the end coming, but the end's not yet. I'm still in the game. I still have a chance to make it to the semifinals of the Continental Classic. Do you know how long I've wanted to be in a tournament like this? With these men, somebody like Brody King, just going after me knowing I'm hurt, and going after me with everything that he's got? Do you know how much I love that? It might hurt, but I love this." Danielson's heartfelt comments earned a yes chant from the fans, and Bryan said that he's not allowed to do that anymore, but then asked them if anyone's gonna tell on him. Bryan said that the fans shouldn't record this, but was clearly being sarcastic before delivering a yes chant of his own, much to the delight of the crowd in Texas. During his post-show shenanigans, Danielson had a cut on his face as his eye patch had been removed during his match with King, and it was bloodied. In a backstage interview, Danielson said he got yelled at by AEW physician Doc Sampson and said that he's sure that his wife Brie Garcia will have some choice words for him as well. Danielson joked that his daughter will probably cry and his son will probably try and hit him in the eye, and while he was able to laugh about things, his eye situation is very serious. Bryan has even said in the past that he may have to wear an eye patch for the rest of his wrestling career, and whether that's the case or not, we're wishing him the best with his eye injury. Right now, Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho have a shot at the AEW World Tag Team Championships, but Omega is currently out of action due to being sick with diverticulitis. This is a serious medical issue which has affected Brock Lesnar, Shane McMahon, and Vince McMahon, and we now know more about what happened with the cleaner. On Wrestling Observer Radio, it was noted that Omega was in a lot of pain on Friday and had to be rushed to the hospital, and at the time, he thought he was dealing with another hernia. It was a hernia that kept Omega out of the ring in 2022, and Omega feared that he was suffering from another one, perhaps because he had messed up his diet. Omega was hurting really bad when he appeared on last week's Dynamite for a promo with Jericho, and the report said that if he'd not gone to the hospital when he did, it could have been horrendous. When Omega was approached for an update, he mentioned he was in pain and had trouble sleeping, and also reiterated that his situation, as bad as it is, could have been much worse. The report added that it's unclear when Omega will be able to wrestle again, and it's a very serious situation, and fortunately, it was diagnosed at the hospital just in time. Fightful Select added that Omega won't be a part of any present AEW plans, meaning he'll be out of the action for World's End, where he and Jericho were supposed to compete for the tag titles. Fightful was also told that there were unconfirmed plans for Omega to wrestle on the Go Home show before World's End, but that won't be the case now, and we're wishing Omega the best in his recovery. It was in 2022 that Dexter Lumis returned to WWE as part of Triple H's wave of rehirings, but the possible serial killer hasn't been featured much on TV. Outside of a brief angle with The Miz and a teased The Way reunion, we haven't seen Lumis in some time, with his most recent match being on a May edition of WWE Main Event. In an update from Fightful Select, it's noted that Lumis isn't injured, but is simply waiting on WWE to give him something. As they report, Dexter Lumis hasn't wrestled a match since May. He's not been on the show and hasn't been at many recent tapings. We are told that he isn't injured and is good to go whenever WWE develops creative plans. Perhaps WWE could revisit Lumis' marriage to Indy Hartwell, as the kayfabe couple were a hit with fans in NXT, and now both are part of Monday Night Raw. Triple H may have rehired Dexter Lumis, but he's been given very little in his first year back, and what do you hope to see for Lumis? Share your ideas down below. When it comes to tag team wrestling, few teams are more successful than the Dudley Boys, who have held gold in practically every promotion they've been a part of. The Dudleys recently reunited for the 1000th episode of Impact Wrestling on TV, and now the team of Devon and Bully Ray are set for a major honor. According to PW Insider, the Dudleys will be inducted into the 2300 Arena's Hardcore Hall of Fame over WrestleMania 40 week, and will be the 23rd induction into this Hall of Fame. The 2300 Arena in Philly is better known to wrestling fans as the ECW Arena, as it's where some of the biggest ECW shows took place, so it's fitting the induction happens here. But what do you make of this story? What are your favorite memories of the iconic tag team? Let us know in the comments below. Next week, CM Punk will compete in a WWE ring for the first time in close to a decade when he faces Dominic Mysterio at a live event inside MSG. As for Punk's TV return to the ring, we know that he'll be a part of the 2024 Men's Royal Rumble match, and WWE would be wise to keep him away from action until then. That's according to Jim Cornette, who on his Drive-Thru podcast argued that WWE should not have Punk wrestle on TV until the Rumble, as doing so would squander a huge opportunity. Cornette is talking a lot of sense, as seeing Punk's first televised match in a decade could be a huge selling point for the Rumble, which is already one of WWE's most popular annual shows. It was at the 2014 Royal Rumble that Punk wrestled his last WWE match, as he'd walk out of the company the next night, and fans may have to wait until January 27th to see him in the ring again. More from CM Punk as his return to WWE was something fans thought they'd never see, but why exactly is CM Punk back with the company he walked out of in 2014? Speaking on Instagram Live for Elite Comics and Culture City, Punk was asked about his motivations and explained how his comeback isn't really about him at all. He explained, "This isn't about me, this is about us. This is about everybody that is behind me, that for 10 years didn't forget, chanted my name. I'm gonna put the boots back on for all of y'all. We're going to go on this journey together." It's certainly interesting that Punk has said fans missed him for 10 years, as by all accounts, Punk is acting like his run in a certain all-elite company simply never happened. CM Punk will be part of Raw going forward, and is a favorite in next month's Royal Rumble match. And what do you make to the reasoning Punk gave for his return to WWE? Last week, we reported on independent wrestler Antonio San Francisco, aka ASF, who was arrested earlier this month on charges he sent explicit photos years ago to a minor. ASF reportedly sent photos through Facebook and Snapchat to a fan when they were 11 years old, and while he first tried to deny this, later he said it was a, quote, stupid mistake. ASF used to work for GCW, but they stopped using him due to a controversy earlier this year, and has since been working with Lucha Maniacs, with his most recent match being in September. According to the Laredo Morning Times, Lucha Maniacs has now cut ties with ASF and issued the following statement on the matter. We want to make it clear that upon confirming his guilt, we have already taken the decision to end all working relations with him. The resolution is taken in line with the need to preserve the integrity of our community and the gravity of the matter. The company also dropped him from their Lucha Locura 3 event, where he was going to be a part of a trios match, and will continue to monitor his situation for further updates. It was earlier this year that Bobby Lashley formed a faction with the Street Profits, and while the trio haven't held gold yet, they've proven to be a force to be reckoned with on SmackDown. Not long ago, it was reported that WWE was considering Odyssey Jones for the faction, and despite him being drafted to Raw, he had been quietly moved to the Blue brand. According to a new report from Fightful Select, WWE has turned down the idea of Jones joining the group, but confirmed that the idea was pitched by somebody in creative. The report adds that Jones has been teaming with Cameron Grimes against Austin Theory and Grayson Waller at recent live events, but it remains unclear when he'll be on TV. Odyssey Jones brings a large man presence to the ring when he competes, but won't be a part of Lashley's faction. And do you think WWE is right to reject adding him as a member or not? On last week's SmackDown, Mia Yim had her first TV match in close to 6 months when she teamed up with Zelina Vega in a losing effort to the Kabuki Warriors. While Yim and Vega came up short, the OC member did use a unique move to try and get the win, one that fans may recognize from the early days of TNA wrestling. Taking to Instagram, Yim thanked former TNA wrestler Roxy Laveau for granting her permission to use the Voodoo Drop and asked fans if they have any ideas for what she should call the move. Yim was rehired by WWE last year and has worked with the OC ever since, but we'll have to see if adding the Voodoo Drop to her arsenal can finally make Yim a champion in WWE. Now, Omos has had an interesting 2023, as despite a strong start including feuds with Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins, the second half of the year has seen very little for the Nigerian giant. Fans have been left wondering what's next for the former Raw Tag Team Champion, and it seems that despite his absence from the ring, WWE still sees big things for the big superstar. Fightful Select reports that Omos is talked about within WWE as the right guy for a special attraction type of role, which explains why he was kept as a free agent during this year's draft. It was explained on screen that MVP had negotiated free agency status for Omos, so that he can continue to be featured on both Raw and SmackDown as and when WWE want to use him. Omos' last appearance was at SummerSlam in the Slim Jim Battle Royal, which was won by LA Knight, and he's been working live events ever since, but don't be surprised to see the spectacle on TV soon. At last week's ROH Final Battle 2023, Mark Briscoe and FTR took on the Blackpool Combat Club in an exciting match that had most fans in attendance truly captivated. We say most, as there was one fan who didn't seem as interested, and has since gone viral on social media because of an interaction with one of the wrestlers. In a clip shared to Twitter, Dax Harwood could be seen getting angry at a fan for using her phone during his match, with the consensus being she should have been paying attention, especially as she was in the front row. In fairness, we don't know what the fan was doing on her phone, and could have been sending a necessary message to somebody, but Harwood clearly wasn't pleased at ringside during his match. Since March of last year, Tony Khan has owned Ring of Honor, and since then, he's produced some pay-per-views and hosts weekly ROH shows on the Honor Club platform. After last week's AEW Collision, ROH hosted its latest set of tapings, which saw an appearance by Khan, who had a major announcement for the fans. On the show, Tony Khan announced the new Ring of Honor Women's Television Championship, but at this time, it's unclear how the first champion will be crowned. While fans have been excited for the new title, some have poked fun at the fact that ROH now has 2 television titles more than they have TV deals. Athena has dominated as ROH Women's World Champion, and with the new TV title, it'll help another female talent in ROH as the company continues to evolve with Tony Khan in charge. On last week's AEW Collision, Thunder Rosa made her long-awaited return to TV, and it won't be long before fans finally see the former champion back in action. It's been announced that the former AEW Women's World Champion will wrestle in a tag team match on this week's AEW Collision in her hometown of San Antonio, Texas. Rosa will team with Abaddon to face Sky Blue and Julia Hart in what'll be Rosa's first match since the August 10th, 2022 edition of AEW Dark Elevation. A lot has changed in AEW since then, and Rosa is pleased to finally be getting back in the ring, and we'll have to see how she fares in the upcoming tag team match on AEW Collision. More from AEW now, as last week's Collision saw Abaddon face a notable name in wrestling, as Abaddon got a comfortable win over Jasmine Allure. If that name sounds familiar, it's because Allure has competed for the NWA, ROH, AEW, and WWE, and in the case of the latter, lost a squash match to Lacey Evans earlier this year. Allure didn't have a good night on Collision either, as her debut on the Saturday show saw her lose to Abaddon, but we're sure that Allure will continue to compete no matter what comes her way. During a recent ROH taping, Taya Valkyrie's sunglasses were on the floor at ringside and grabbed by a fan who took to Twitter to share their delight about the unusual souvenir. This led to a response by Valkyrie, who in essence accused the fan of stealing from her, and things would only get more heated from there. In their response, the fan argued that Valkyrie was being cheap, saying she earns over 6 figures, but wouldn't let the fan who'd paid to be there have one pair of sunglasses. Valkyrie argued that this wasn't the point, and later said that the point is that people should not take things that don't belong to them. Taya added that she's spoken to the person and there are no hard feelings, but added that if anyone drops something, by accident or on purpose, it's not yours to take. While wrestlers like Bret Hart and Rey Mysterio often hand items to fans, that is much different than what happened here, and we hope the fan learned a lesson about not taking what isn't theirs. Each week, WWE and AEW runs events, and while the two companies are really close to being in the same town, the two are often trying to outdo each other when it comes to attendance. It's almost always the case that WWE shows outdraw AEW, and this past week proved no different, with last week's Raw selling 9,552 tickets. This is significantly more than AEW Dynamite, which did 3,659, and SmackDown would also beat Collision, selling 6,240 in Green Bay to Collision's 2,736 tickets in Garland, Texas. It comes as no surprise that WWE has once again demolished AEW when it comes to live attendance figures, and we'll have to see if there's ever a time when AEW outdraws WWE. In WWE, few women are more celebrated than Trish Stratus and Lita, who have been enemies and allies on TV and are real-life best friends. While both retired from the ring years ago, the pair have made returns, including this year, and now fans will have the chance to see the pair together again next March. On Twitter, the For the Love of Wrestling convention account announced Lita will be at their con on March 2nd and March 3rd, after previously announcing Trish for the event. Fans will be able to get individual photos with the pair, as well as a group photo with Team Bestie, and we're sure fans in Manchester, UK will have a great time meeting the duo next year. More from AEW as MJF is the longest reigning world champion in the company's history, and it was recently announced that he is set to be inducted into the National Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. Taking to Instagram this week, MJF reacted to the news, saying he's accomplished more than he can remember at this point in his career, and said this may be the biggest outside of being AEW champion. MJF said he is humbled to soon be a part of the collection of incredible Jewish athletes in history, and we're sure MJF will have plenty more to say today at his induction ceremony. And we're ending with ROH Final Battle, as the show saw El Hijo del Vikingo successfully retain his AAA Mega Championship against Black Taurus in an action-packed match, but with a major botch. The match was overshadowed by an embarrassing botch by Vikingo as he failed to execute a top rope maneuver on Taurus, who was waiting for him outside the ring by the apron. On Twitter, fans had a field day with the error, with one saying this is AEW in 2023, stating that Tony Khan's first company is full of botched spots, obvious choreography, and senseless spot fests. Fans in the comments argued with the post, saying that the fact that Taurus just stood there waiting to be hit was embarrassing, with one saying, "This is why ROH will never go anywhere." Another hit out at the match by saying it was so choreographed that it resembled Olympic gymnastics, and said that the match was embarrassing to wrestling as a sport. Ultimately, Tony Khan has the power to book ROH and AEW how he sees fit, but this isn't the first notable botch fans have seen, and this made for a very awkward situation at Final Battle.